The Nissan Altima stopped at the intersection of Imam Khomeini Boulevard. Friday afternoon traffic in Absard always slowed to a crawl. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh sat in the back seat, his wife beside him. 3 security vehicles formed a protective convoy around them. The scientist checked his watch. They were running late for lunch at their country villa. A pickup truck sat parked 50 meters ahead, covered with a blue tarp. Nothing unusual for this rural area outside Tehran. The security team had passed this intersection dozens of times. They'd never noticed the truck before. Fakhrizadeh's phone buzzed, a message from his assistant about Monday's meeting. He typed a reply. His wife pointed out the window at a roadside fruit stand. Fresh pomegranates were in season. The tarp on the pickup truck shifted, just slightly. No one in the convoy noticed. Inside that truck bed, a weapons system powered on. Not a human gunman, not a remote operator with a joystick. An artificial intelligence algorithm activated its targeting sequence. Facial recognition software scanned the vehicles approaching the intersection. The system had been waiting for 11 days. The database contained one face, one target, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iranian physicist, head of the Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research. The man Western intelligence agencies believed ran Iran's nuclear weapons program. The AI found its match. Confidence level 97%. The weapon system was a modified Belgian FN MAG machine gun, mounted on a robotic base, equipped with advanced optics and targeting sensors. Total weight approximately 1 ton. It had been assembled inside the truck bed piece by piece over 3 nights. The convoy moved forward. 20 meters from the intersection. Fakhrizadeh finished his text message. His security detail maintained standard formation. Lead vehicle first, Fakhrizadeh's Nissan second, 2 chase vehicles behind. The machine gun adjusted its aim. Micro servos compensated for wind speed. The AI calculated bullet trajectory, distance to target, vehicle speed. The algorithm processed data faster than any human sniper could. 15 seconds until optimal firing position. The lead security vehicle passed through the intersection. The driver radioed an all clear. The route to the villa was only 3 kilometers ahead. They'd been making this trip every Friday for 6 months. Same time, same route, pattern of life, the kind of routine that gets people killed. The Nissan entered the kill zone. The machine gun fired, 13 rounds in 3 seconds. The sound was distinctive. Not the crack of a sniper rifle, the heavy staccato of a belt-fed weapon. Bullets punched through the Nissan's windshield, through the hood, through the door panels. Fakhrizadeh's wife screamed. Blood sprayed across the back seat. The scientist slumped forward. 3 rounds had struck him in the shoulder and spine. The security team's radios erupted with shouts. The chase vehicle slammed to a stop. The machine gun continued firing, targeting the pursuing vehicles now. Windshields shattered, tires exploded. The security officers dove for cover behind their cars. They returned fire at the pickup truck. Bullets sparked off the weapon's armored housing. The AI system registered incoming fire. Its self-preservation protocol activated. The machine gun swiveled toward the muzzle flashes. Suppressive fire. 6 seconds of sustained bursts. Enough time for the explosive charges to arm. Fakhrizadeh's bodyguard yanked open the Nissan's door. The scientist was still breathing. Barely. Blood pooled on the seat. The bodyguard pulled him onto the pavement, started applying pressure to the wounds. Another security officer ran towards them. His radio handset trailing its coil, the pickup truck exploded. A massive detonation that sent the weapon system spinning through the air. Shrapnel tore through the intersection. The blast wave knocked the bodyguard flat. Car alarms shrieked. Smoke and dust obscured everything. When the security team could see again, the truck was burning wreckage. The machine gun lay in pieces across the road. The AI system's memory banks were already melting in the heat. Evidence destroyed, just as designed. Fakhrizadeh died 13 minutes later. A helicopter medevac couldn't reach them in time. Rural roads, Friday traffic. By the time they got him to a hospital in Tehran, he'd lost too much blood. Iran's top nuclear scientist was gone, killed by a machine that made its own targeting decisions. The Iranian government announced his death the next morning. State media called it a terrorist attack. They blamed Israel. They blamed the United States. They promised revenge. But they didn't mention the machine gun. They didn't mention the AI system. Not publicly. That information was classified. In Tel Aviv, Mossad headquarters went dark. No one claimed responsibility, no official statements, but intelligence agencies around the world started asking the same questions. Who built that weapon system? How did they get it into Iran? And how long had they been planning this? The answers would reveal an operation years in the making. A covert program that combined human intelligence with cutting-edge robotics, surveillance, infiltration. Assassination by algorithm. The future of targeted killings had arrived on a rural road outside Tehran. But the story doesn't start with the assassination. It starts 3 years earlier, in a nondescript office building in Tel Aviv, where a small team of Mossad officers received an urgent directive from the Prime Minister's office. Stop the Iranian nuclear program by any means necessary. The target list contained 12 names: scientists, engineers, program managers. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was at the top. He'd been on that list since 2003. Multiple assassination attempts had failed. He was too well protected, too cautious. His security detail was among the best in Iran. Traditional methods wouldn't work. Car bombs, poisonings, sniper attacks, all had been considered and rejected. Fakhrizadeh varied his routes. He used armored vehicles. His security teams swept for explosives. They jammed radio signals to prevent remote detonations. The Mossad planning cell needed something new, something Fakhrizadeh's security couldn't anticipate. They needed a weapon that could wait, that could discriminate between targets, that could destroy itself after the kill. The solution came from Unit 8200, Israel Signals Intelligence Corps. They'd been experimenting with autonomous weapon systems for 5 years. Drones that could select their own targets, loitering munitions with facial recognition. The technology was advancing faster than international law could regulate it. The unit commander presented the concept: a machine gun mounted on a robotic platform, controlled by artificial intelligence. No human in the loop once it activated. The system could wait for days, weeks if necessary. It would fire only when it identified the target. Then it would self-destruct. The Mossad planners had concerns. What if the AI made a mistake? What if it killed civilians? What if the technology failed? The unit commander had answers for everything. The facial recognition was military grade. Accuracy above 95%. The weapon's arc of fire could be programmed to minimize collateral damage. Redundant systems would prevent misfires. The operation received approval in January 2018, codename Bitter Melon. The planning phase would take 18 months, building the weapon system, training the operators, gathering intelligence on Fakhrizadeh's movements, finding the right location for the ambush. The first challenge was getting the components into Iran. The weapon system was too large to smuggle as a single unit. It would have to be shipped in pieces, disguised as industrial equipment, machine parts, electronics, nothing that would trigger customs inspections. Mossad used a network of shell companies, front businesses in Turkey, in Azerbaijan, in the UAE. Each company ordered legitimate equipment from European manufacturers. But some shipments contained extra components. A servo motor here, a targeting sensor there. The pieces moved through the supply chain like ghosts. The second challenge was assembly. Someone needed to put the weapon together inside Iran. That meant recruiting local assets, mechanics, engineers, people with technical skills who could follow complex instructions, people willing to work for Israeli intelligence. The recruitment operation took 8 months. Mossad case officers made contact through encrypted messaging apps. They vetted candidates carefully. Background checks, surveillance, psychological assessments. They needed people who wouldn't panic, who wouldn't talk, who could compartmentalize what they were doing. They found 3 candidates: an automotive mechanic in Tehran, an electrical engineer in Karaj, a metal worker in Qawm. None of them knew about the others. None of them knew the full scope of the operation. They just knew they were being paid substantial amounts of money, deposited in foreign bank accounts, to assemble components according to precise specifications. The third challenge was surveillance. Fakhrizadeh's pattern of life had to be documented. Every trip, every route, every security measure. Mossad needed to find the vulnerability, the moment when he was most exposed. Human surveillance was too risky. Iranian counterintelligence was sophisticated. They'd catch foreign operatives, so Mossad used signals intelligence. They hacked Fakhrizadeh's security details communications. They intercepted his phone calls. They tracked his vehicle's GPS. They built a digital profile of his movements. The data revealed a pattern. Every Friday afternoon, Fakhrizadeh traveled from Tehran to his villa in Absard. Same route, same timing. The security convoy used Imam Khomeini Boulevard. It was the fastest route, the most direct, and Fakhrizadeh was a man of habit. The intersection at Absard became the kill zone. Rural location, limited visibility, multiple escape routes for the weapon system if something went wrong. The planners studied satellite imagery. They measured distances. They calculated angles of fire. They ran computer simulations of the attack. The weapon system was ready by September 2020. The AI had been trained on thousands of images of Fakhrizadeh, different angles, different lighting conditions, different clothing. The algorithm could identify him in a crowd, through a car window, even with partial facial obscurity. The components entered Iran through 3 separate routes. The machine gun barrel came through a Turkish import company, labeled as industrial drilling equipment. The robotic mounting system came through Azerbaijan, hidden inside a shipment of oil field machinery. The AI computer and sensors came through the UAE, packed inside crates of telecommunications equipment. The 3 recruited assets received their instructions, encrypted files sent through dead-drop USB drives. The files contained assembly diagrams, step-by-step procedures. The mechanic built the mounting frame. The engineer wired the electronics. The metal worker fabricated the housing. They worked separately in different cities. Each one completed their section without knowing what the others were building. The components were transported to a safe house in Absard in October, a small warehouse registered to a fake import business. The final assembly took 3 nights. The completed weapon system weighed exactly 970 kilograms. It fit inside a standard pickup truck bed with 20 centimeters of clearance. The team covered it with a blue tarp, standard practice for securing cargo in Iran, nothing that would attract attention. The AI system was activated on November 16th. A Mossad operator sent the command through a satellite link, encrypted burst transmission, less than 2 seconds. The machine gun's computer came online. It began its targeting sequence. Facial recognition active, waiting for the designated target. The truck was parked at the intersection. The local asset who drove it walked away. He caught a bus back to Tehran. His bank account received the final payment. He never knew what he'd helped build. For 11 days, the weapon system waited. Cars passed through the intersection. Hundreds of them, thousands of faces. The AI scanned each one. No match, no engagement. The system remained dormant. Solar panels on the truck kept the batteries charged. The weapon was patient. Fakhrizadeh's convoy approached at 1:30 p.m. on November 27th. The machine gun sensors detected the vehicles. The AI began its final targeting sequence. Facial recognition locked on. The algorithm confirmed the target. The weapon fired. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard arrived at the scene 20 minutes after the explosion. Black SUVs, sirens wailing. Officers in tactical gear secured the perimeter. They found the weapon's debris scattered across 50 meters. Circuit boards, melted processors, twisted metal. The self-destruct charges had done their job. A forensics team began cataloging fragments. Serial numbers had been acid-etched off every component. The machine gun's barrel was Belgian manufacture, 7 years old, sold to a Czech military contractor. Then it disappeared from inventory records. The paper trail went cold in Sofia. The Revolutionary Guard's intelligence division knew immediately this wasn't a standard assassination. The weapon system was too sophisticated, too precise. The operational security was flawless. This had state-level backing. Israel was the obvious suspect, but proving it would be difficult. General Hossein Taib commanded the intelligence organization. He arrived at the scene that evening, walked through the debris field. His analysts gave him preliminary assessments: the AI system, the autonomous targeting, the self-destruct mechanism. He'd never seen anything like it. Taib ordered a complete investigation. Every component traced, every witness interviewed, every security camera within 5 kilometers analyzed. He wanted names. He wanted the infiltration network. He wanted the people who'd assembled this weapon on Iranian soil. The security camera footage told part of the story. The pickup truck appeared on November 16th. It parked at the intersection at 2 a.m. A man climbed out, average height, dark jacket, baseball cap obscuring his face. He walked north, disappeared from camera range. No other footage showed him. The truck's license plate was registered to a construction company in Karaj. The company existed on paper, but the office address was an empty lot. The bank account had been opened 6 months earlier, 3 deposits totaling 40,000 euros, all from a Turkish textile firm. That firm was also a shell company. Taib's investigators traced the components backward through customs records. The machine gun barrel had entered through Imam Khomeini Airport. The electronics came through Bandar Abbas Port. The mounting system crossed the border from Azerbaijan. All legitimate shipments, all properly documented, all completely fake. The Turkish textile firm led to a holding company in Cyprus. That company was owned by another shell corporation in the British Virgin Islands. The ownership structure was designed to obscure layer upon layer of corporate entities, each one legitimate, each one untraceable to its ultimate source. But Taib had advantages. Iran's intelligence services had been fighting Israeli operations for decades. They knew how Mossad worked. They knew the patterns: shell companies, cutouts, local recruits doing technical work. The signature was clear. The investigation focused on the assembly phase. Someone had put this weapon together inside Iran. Multiple people, probably. With specialized skills. Taib's team compiled a list of mechanics and engineers in the Tehran area. People with automotive experience. People with electronics backgrounds. People with recent unexplained income. The automotive mechanic in Tehran made a mistake. He deposited 15,000 euros into his Iranian bank account. He claimed it was payment for consulting work, but he couldn't name the client. His story fell apart under questioning. Revolutionary Guard officers arrested him on December 3rd. They took him to Evin prison. The interrogation lasted 6 hours. He broke after 3. He told them everything. The USB drive with assembly instructions, the warehouse in Absard, the other 2 men he'd never met. The electrical engineer in Karaj tried to run. He bought a bus ticket to the Turkish border, made it 50 kilometers before a checkpoint stopped him. His passport was flagged. They arrested him at the roadside, searched his apartment, found encrypted hard drives, technical schematics, evidence of the weapon's electrical systems. The metal worker in Qom was smarter. He'd already left Iran, crossed into Iraq on November 28th, the day after the assassination, then into Turkey. Then he vanished. Mossad had extracted him, new identity, new life somewhere in Europe. The Iranians would never find him, but they had 2 of the 3 men. That was enough. The interrogations revealed the recruitment process, the encrypted messages, the foreign bank accounts, the promise of relocation after the operation. The 2 men gave up everything they knew. It wasn't much. Mossad had compartmentalized perfectly. The recruits never met their handlers face to face. All communication was digital, dead drops, one-time encryption pads. The handlers used multiple aliases. The money came through shell companies. Nothing traced back to Israel directly. Taib briefed Iran's supreme leader in mid-December. Ayatollah Khamenei listened to the intelligence assessment, the weapons system, the AI targeting, the Israeli involvement. He wanted immediate retaliation, proportional response, hit Israeli assets, kill their scientists, make them pay. But Taib counseled patience. Revenge was necessary, but it had to be strategic. Random attacks wouldn't satisfy anyone. They needed a target that mattered, an operation that would hurt Israel the way Fakhrizadeh's death hurt Iran. The supreme leader gave him 6 months, planned something devastating, something that would send a message. Iran's nuclear program had lost its leader. Israel would lose something equivalent. Meanwhile, the CIA was conducting its own investigation. The agency had signals intelligence on the operation, not complete, but enough to understand what happened. An autonomous weapon system, AI-controlled targeting, self-destructing after the kill. The implications were serious. The CIA's counterintelligence division sent an urgent cable to Tel Aviv station. They wanted confirmation from Mossad. Was this your operation? Did you use autonomous weapons? Are there more planned? The questions were direct. Mossad's response was silence. No confirmation, no denial, standard procedure. Operations remain classified, even from allies, especially from allies who might object to the methods. The CIA director briefed the president in late December. The intelligence community was divided on the assassination. Some analysts praised the innovation. Autonomous weapons could revolutionize targeted killings. Others warned about precedent. If Israel used AI assassins, other countries would follow. The president's national security team debated the implications. Russia could use similar systems against dissidents. China could deploy them in Hong Kong or Taiwan. North Korea could target defectors. The technology wasn't restricted to democracies. Any nation with advanced robotics could build these weapons. But the immediate question was simpler. Did the assassination work? Did killing Fakhrizadeh actually slow Iran's nuclear program? Or would they just replace him and continue? The CIA's analysis was pessimistic. Fakhrizadeh was important, but he wasn't irreplaceable. Iran had other scientists, other engineers. The nuclear program would continue, maybe delayed by 6 months, maybe a year, but not stopped. Israeli intelligence disagreed. Mossad's assessment was that Fakhrizadeh was uniquely qualified. His knowledge of weaponization was unmatched in Iran. Finding a replacement would take years. The program would stagnate without his leadership. The truth was somewhere between. Iran's nuclear program did continue, but it slowed. Fakhrizadeh's successor lacked his experience. Decisions took longer. Technical problems went unsolved. The assassination had an impact. Just not the decisive one Israel hoped for. Back in Iran, the Revolutionary Guard was preparing its response. Taib's planning cell identified potential targets: Israeli diplomats, Mossad officers under diplomatic cover, scientists working on defense projects. The target list contained 20 names. But Taib wanted something more sophisticated. Killing low-level diplomats wouldn't balance the scales. He wanted a high-value target, someone whose death would match Fakhrizadeh's importance. That list was shorter. 3 names, all difficult targets, all heavily protected. The planning took months: surveillance operations, pattern of life analysis, finding vulnerabilities. The Revolutionary Guard's Quds Force handled the operational details. They'd conducted assassinations before, in Europe, in the Middle East. They knew the tradecraft. The target they selected was in Vienna, an Israeli military attaché. But not just any attaché. He ran Mossad's operations in Central Europe. His real name was classified. His cover identity was solid. But Iranian intelligence had identified him through years of careful surveillance. The Quds Force cell in Austria began preparations in March 2021. They needed local support: safe houses, weapons, escape routes. The operation would be conventional. No AI systems, no autonomous weapons, just professionals doing professional work. But before they could execute, something changed. Israeli intelligence detected the planning: signals intercepts, human sources. Someone inside the Quds Force was talking. Mossad received warnings in April. They pulled the attaché out of Vienna, rotated him back to Tel Aviv. The target disappeared. The Iranian operation collapsed. Months of preparation wasted. Taib was furious. They had a leak. Someone inside the Quds force was working for Israel. The counterintelligence investigation began immediately. Polygraph tests, surveillance of personnel, interrogations. The hunt for the mole consumed resources for months. They never found him. Or her. The leak continued. Iranian operations kept getting compromised. Weapons shipments intercepted, safe houses raided, assets arrested. Someone was feeding Mossad everything. The truth was that Mossad had multiple sources inside Iran's intelligence apparatus. Not one mole, several, recruited over years, paid in cryptocurrency, extracted when their cover was threatened. The penetration of Iranian intelligence was deeper than Taib realized, and the Fakhrizadeh assassination had revealed something else. Israel's technological advantage was growing. Autonomous weapons were just the beginning. Mossad was developing other systems, other capabilities. The future of covert operations was changing faster than Iran could adapt. The weapon system that killed Fakhrizadeh wasn't Mossad's first autonomous platform. It was the fourth. The program started in 2015. Unit 8200 partnered with Israeli defense contractors. 3 companies were involved. Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, Israel Aerospace Industries, Elbit Systems. Each brought different expertise. Rafael provided the robotics, precision actuators, stabilization systems. They'd been building unmanned ground vehicles for a decade. The technology was mature, reliable. Their engineers designed the weapon mount. It could compensate for wind, for vehicle movement, for target evasion. Israel Aerospace Industries supplied the sensors, optical systems, thermal imaging. The cameras could identify faces at 300 meters, in daylight, in darkness, in rain. The resolution was extraordinary, military grade, better than anything commercially available. Elbit provided the artificial intelligence. This was the critical component, the system that made targeting decisions. The algorithm had to be perfect. No mistakes, no civilian casualties, no international incidents that could be traced back to Israel. The AI training process took 18 months. Engineers fed the system millions of images, faces in crowds, faces through windows, faces partially obscured. The neural network learned to recognize patterns, facial structures, gait analysis. Even body language helped identification. They tested the system at a classified facility in the Negev desert. Mock scenarios, actors playing targets. The AI had to select the correct person, ignore everyone else, fire only when certain. The early tests had problems, false positives, hesitation, targeting errors. The engineers refined the algorithms, added redundancy checks. The system would only fire at confidence levels above 95%. Below that threshold, it would wait, gather more data, improve its certainty. Better to miss the shot than kill the wrong person. By 2017, the system was operational. Mossad used it first in Syria, a Hezbollah commander, traveling in a convoy near Damascus. Traditional methods were too risky. Syrian air defenses were active. Ground teams couldn't get close enough. The autonomous weapon was deployed at a checkpoint, hidden inside an abandoned building. The AI tracked vehicles for 3 days. When the commander's convoy approached, the system engaged, 30 rounds, surgical precision. The commander died. His bodyguard survived. The weapon self-destructed. Syrian intelligence found the debris, but they couldn't reconstruct what happened. The evidence was too damaged. They suspected a remote-controlled system, some kind of drone. They never guessed it was autonomous, that the machine made its own firing decision. Mossad was satisfied. The technology worked. The second deployment came 4 months later, Gaza Strip, a Hamas explosives expert. He built the bombs that killed Israeli soldiers. Taking him out required penetrating dense urban areas, too dangerous for commandos. The weapon was smuggled through the tunnel network, piece by piece. Palestinian collaborators assembled it. They were told it was a remote sniper system. They didn't know about the AI. The device was positioned in an apartment overlooking the target's workshop. The Hamas engineer maintained a regular schedule. Every morning he entered the workshop. Every evening he left. The AI observed his pattern for 5 days. On the 6th day, it engaged. The engineer stepped outside. The weapon fired. 3 shots, center mass. He collapsed on the street. The self-destruct charge failed. This was a problem. Hamas fighters reached the apartment. They found the weapon intact. The AI computer, the facial recognition system, the evidence Mossad couldn't afford to leave behind. Israeli intelligence scrambled. They activated an asset in Gaza, a collaborator with access to Hamas facilities. His mission was simple: destroy the weapon, steal the computer if possible. He had 12 hours before Hamas technical experts could analyze the system. The collaborator reached the apartment at midnight. Hamas guards were posted outside. He claimed he was ordered to remove the device. The guards checked with their commanders. The orders were confirmed. The collaborator's cover held. He'd been working for Israel for 3 years. He carried the weapon's computer out in a duffel bag, left the mechanical components behind. The guards never checked the bag. He delivered it to a dead drop in Rafah. Mossad extracted it through Egypt. The operation was saved. Barely. The near disaster forced a review. The self-destruct mechanisms were redesigned. Triple redundancy. If one charge failed, 2 backups would detonate. The system would be impossible to recover intact. The engineers ran hundreds of tests. They couldn't accept another failure. The third deployment was in Lebanon. A Hezbollah intelligence officer. He'd been tracking Israeli agents for years, responsible for exposing 3 Mossad networks, dozens of assets arrested, some executed. The intelligence officer was careful. He varied his routes, used multiple safe houses, never established patterns. But everyone has weaknesses. He visited his mother every Thursday evening in a village near Tyre. The visit lasted exactly 2 hours. Then he drove back to Beirut. This routine never changed. Family obligation overrode operational security. Mossad positioned the weapon on a rooftop overlooking his mother's house. The AI tracked him for 6 weeks, confirming the pattern, building confidence. On the 7th Thursday, the system engaged. The intelligence officer exited the house. The weapon fired. He died on his mother's doorstep. The self-destruct worked perfectly. The explosion destroyed the weapon completely. Lebanese security forces found nothing useful, just fragments. Hezbollah suspected Israel, but they had no proof, no evidence, no leads to follow. 3 successful operations. The technology was proven. Mossad's senior leadership approved expanded deployment. More systems would be built. More targets would be selected. The autonomous weapon program became a strategic asset, but it also became a vulnerability. The technology couldn't remain secret forever. Other intelligence services would learn about it. They'd develop their own versions. The arms race was inevitable. The CIA knew about the program by mid-2019. Satellite imagery detected the test facility in the Negev. Signals intelligence intercepted communications about the deployments. Human sources confirmed the details. American intelligence briefed the National Security Council. The debate inside the U.S. government was intense. Some officials argued for collaboration, share technology with Israel, develop American versions. Others warned about proliferation. Once autonomous weapons spread, every conflict would escalate. The genie couldn't be put back in the bottle. The Pentagon's research division was already working on similar systems. DARPA had programs exploring autonomous targeting, machine learning for combat applications. The technology was advancing regardless of policy debates. Military necessity drove innovation faster than ethics could constrain it. Russia's intelligence services also detected the Israeli program. The GRU analyzed the Syrian operation. Their technical experts studied the attack patterns. They concluded Israel had developed autonomous weapons. The Kremlin ordered immediate development of equivalent systems. China's Ministry of State Security reached similar conclusions. Their analysts examined the Fakhrizadeh assassination in detail, the forensic evidence, the operational patterns. They recognized the signature of AI-controlled targeting. Chinese military researchers accelerated their own programs. By late 2020, 4 countries had autonomous weapon systems in development: Israel, United States, Russia, China. Each program was classified. Each government denied its existence. But the intelligence community knew. The technology was spreading. The ethical implications were debated in classified settings. Military ethicists questioned the legality. International humanitarian law required human judgment in targeting decisions. Autonomous weapons removed that judgment. Machines couldn't assess proportionality, couldn't evaluate surrender, couldn't show mercy. But the counter-argument was pragmatic. Machines were more precise than humans. They didn't panic, didn't make emotional decisions, didn't commit war crimes out of anger or fear. An AI system would never massacre civilians deliberately. It followed its programming absolutely. The real concern was accountability. If an autonomous weapon killed the wrong person, who was responsible? The programmer, the commander who deployed it, the political leader who authorized its use. The legal frameworks didn't exist. International law hadn't caught up to technology. Mossad's position was straightforward. They were at war with Iran, with Hezbollah, with Hamas. The enemy didn't respect rules, didn't limit their methods. Autonomous weapons were just another tool, more effective than alternatives, less risky for Israeli personnel. The Fakhrizadeh operation proved the concept definitively. A high-value target eliminated, no Israeli casualties, no captured operatives, no diplomatic crisis. The weapon destroyed itself. The evidence vanished. From an operational perspective, it was perfect. But perfection created its own problems. Iran now knew autonomous weapons existed. They'd reverse engineer the concept, develop their own systems, target Israeli officials, Israeli scientists. The technology advantage was temporary. Within 5 years, Iran would have equivalent capabilities. This reality shaped Israeli planning. Mossad needed to exploit the advantage while it lasted. More operations, more targets, degrade Iranian capabilities before they could respond with similar weapons. The window was closing. The target list expanded beyond scientists, Iranian military commanders, intelligence officers, Quds Force leaders, anyone critical to Iran's regional operations. The autonomous weapon program shifted from experimental to operational, from occasional use to systematic campaign. But scaling up meant more risks, more deployments, more chances for failure, more opportunities for the technology to be captured, more exposure to international scrutiny. The program couldn't remain covert indefinitely. The international exposure came in February 2021. A German journalist published an investigation. He'd interviewed Iranian officials, analyzed forensic reports, obtained photographs of the weapon debris. His article detailed the autonomous system, the AI targeting, the self-destruct mechanism. The story went viral. News organizations worldwide picked it up. Autonomous killer robots, machines deciding who lives and dies. The headlines wrote themselves. Human rights organizations demanded investigations. The United Nations scheduled emergency sessions. Israel refused to comment. Official policy: never confirm, never deny. But privately, Mossad leadership was concerned. The exposure changed calculations. Future operations would face scrutiny. Countries would watch for similar attacks. Detection would be easier. The UN debate lasted 3 weeks. Dozens of countries demanded regulations, international treaties banning autonomous weapons, verification protocols, enforcement mechanisms. Russia and China blocked everything. They wanted the technology for themselves. The United States abstained, kept its options open. No regulations passed, no treaties were signed. The debate accomplished nothing concrete, but it established awareness. Autonomous weapons were real. They were being used. The international community knew. That knowledge changed the operational environment. Mossad adapted. The next generation of weapons would be harder to detect. Smaller components, better camouflage, more sophisticated self-destruct systems. The engineers went back to their labs, improved the designs, made the systems stealthier. Meanwhile, Iran accelerated its own program. The Revolutionary Guard established a new unit. Research and development focused on autonomous systems. They recruited robotics engineers, AI specialists, people who could reverse engineer what Israel had built. The Iranian program faced challenges. Their technology base was weaker. International sanctions limited access to advanced components. Their engineers were talented, but they lacked the resources Israeli teams had. Progress was slower, but they had one advantage: motivation. Iran wanted revenge for Fakhrizadeh. That desire drove their program forward. Funding was unlimited, personnel were dedicated, the supreme leader personally oversaw development. This was a national priority. By mid-2021, Iran had a prototype, crude compared to Israeli systems, but functional. The weapon used facial recognition, could wait for targets, could self-destruct after firing. The test results were promising. Iranian intelligence selected their first target, a Mossad officer in Istanbul. He ran networks across the Middle East, recruiting agents, managing operations. His elimination would disrupt Israeli intelligence significantly. The Quds force deployed the weapon in September, hidden in a parked van near the officer's apartment. The AI tracked pedestrians for 2 weeks. The officer maintained irregular patterns, different routes, different timings, good operational security. But on September 28th, he made a mistake. He met an asset at a cafe. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. When he left, he walked directly to his apartment. No surveillance detection route, no counter-surveillance measures. He was tired, distracted, complacent. The weapon engaged as he approached the van. 8 rounds fired, but the targeting was imprecise. 3 shots missed completely. 2 hit his shoulder. 3 struck his abdomen. The officer collapsed. But he was alive. Turkish police arrived within minutes. Ambulances rushed him to hospital. He survived, critical condition, but alive. The weapon's self-destruct worked. The van exploded, evidence destroyed. But the operation was a failure. The target lived. Mossad extracted the officer within 24 hours. A medical evacuation flight. Fake documents. Turkish officials were bribed. He reached Tel Aviv, underwent surgery, recovered slowly. But he could identify his attacker's methodology. That intelligence was valuable. The Iranian weapon's failure revealed its limitations. The AI was less sophisticated. The targeting algorithms needed refinement. The weapon's accuracy was inadequate. Iran's engineers went back to development. They needed more time, more resources, more data. But time was running out. Israeli intelligence knew about Iran's program. They'd tracked its development from the beginning. Human sources inside the Revolutionary Guard, signals intercepts, satellite surveillance. Mossad knew everything. The Israeli response was surgical. They sabotaged Iran's supply chain. Components ordered from foreign suppliers were intercepted, replaced with defective versions, circuit boards that failed under stress, sensors with degraded performance. The Iranian program encountered constant technical problems. They also targeted personnel. Iranian engineers working on the autonomous weapons program started dying. Car accidents, heart attacks, poisonings disguised as medical emergencies. Within 6 months, 4 key scientists were dead. The program lost critical expertise. Iran's counterintelligence recognized the pattern. They were being systematically targeted. The engineers were moved to secure facilities, given bodyguards, restricted in their movements, but the damage was done. The program was set back 18 months. Mossad's campaign wasn't just offensive, they were eliminating competition, ensuring Israeli technological superiority. The autonomous weapon advantage had to be maintained. Other countries couldn't be allowed to catch up. The CIA watched these developments with growing concern. The Israeli-Iranian shadow war was escalating. Autonomous weapons made it easier to conduct assassinations. Lower risk, higher success rates. The conflict could spiral out of control. American diplomats tried to mediate, back-channel communications with both sides, proposals for de-escalation, limits on targeting, mutual restraint. Neither side was interested. Israel wanted to maintain its advantage. Iran wanted revenge. Compromise was impossible. The Pentagon studied the operational lessons, how Mossad used autonomous weapons, how Iran responded, what worked, what failed. American military planners saw applications beyond assassination, battlefield targeting, border security, counterterrorism operations. The technology had broader implications. DARPA accelerated its own programs, more funding, more personnel. The United States needed to match Israeli capabilities and exceed them. American autonomous weapons would be more sophisticated, more reliable, more lethal. The arms race intensified. Russia deployed its first autonomous system in December 2021, Chechnya, a separatist leader. The weapon was crude, based on stolen Israeli designs. But it worked. The target died. The system self-destructed. Russian intelligence considered it a success. China tested its version in Xinjiang. Surveillance applications initially. The AI tracked Uyghur activists, identified targets for arrest. But the system could be weaponized easily. Add a gun, change the programming. The technology was dual use. Surveillance today, assassination tomorrow. By early 2022, 6 countries had autonomous weapon programs: Israel, United States, Russia, China, Iran, Turkey. Each program was secret. Each government denied its existence. But intelligence agencies tracked each other's progress. Everyone knew what everyone else was doing. The proliferation created new risks. These weapons could be sold, transferred to proxy forces. Terrorist organizations could acquire them. Non-state actors with autonomous targeting capabilities. The nightmare scenario that ethicists warned about. Israeli security officials debated whether they'd made a mistake. Mossad's innovation had opened Pandora's box. The technology was spreading faster than anticipated. Control was slipping. Within a decade, autonomous weapons would be commonplace, available to anyone with money and technical expertise. But the debate was academic. The technology existed. It couldn't be uninvented. Countries would develop it regardless of Israeli choices. The only question was who would dominate the field, who would set the standards, who would control the evolution. Mossad's answer was to stay ahead, continue innovation, develop next-generation systems, make Israeli technology the benchmark. Other countries would copy, but they'd always be catching up, always be one generation behind. The Fakhrizadeh operation had demonstrated capability, proved the concept. Now came the hard part: sustaining the advantage, preventing adversaries from achieving parity, maintaining technological superiority in an arms race that had no finish line. Iranian intelligence was planning their next attempt, a more sophisticated operation, better targeting algorithms, improved weapons, more reliable systems. They'd learned from their failure in Istanbul. The mistakes wouldn't be repeated. Their target was being selected, someone important, someone whose death would hurt Israel significantly. The supreme leader demanded success, no more failures, no more excuses. Iran would demonstrate its capability, match Israeli operations, prove it could compete in this new era of warfare. The operation was scheduled for March 2022, 4 months to prepare, train the AI, test the weapon, position the components. Everything had to be perfect. The Revolutionary Guard's reputation depended on success. But Mossad already knew their plans. The intelligence penetration was complete. Iranian communications were compromised. Their safe houses were monitored. Their weapons were tracked. Every step of the operation was visible to Israeli intelligence. The question wasn't whether Iran would attempt another assassination. The question was whether Israel would stop it, or let it proceed. Use it as a test, measure Iranian capabilities, learn their techniques, gather intelligence for future operations. Sometimes the best counterintelligence was watching your enemy fail. The Iranian target was David Barnea, Mossad's director, the most protected intelligence officer in Israel. Surrounded by security every moment, his movements were classified. His schedule was compartmentalized. Even his own officers didn't know his daily routine. But everyone has patterns. Barnea visited his elderly mother in Tel Aviv every Friday evening. The visit was sacred, family tradition. He'd maintained it for 20 years, even after becoming director. The security detail knew. Iranian intelligence discovered it through 6 months of surveillance. The Quds Force cell in Europe prepared the weapon, better than the Istanbul system. Refined targeting algorithms, Improved accuracy, tested extensively at a facility outside Tehran. The AI achieved 93% confidence in test scenarios, close enough to Israeli standards. The weapon was smuggled to Cyprus in January 2022, broken into components, shipped through legitimate channels. The assembly team was already in place. 3 Iranian operatives with technical backgrounds. They'd been living undercover in Nicosia for 8 months, but Mossad had tracked every step. Their penetration of Iranian intelligence was total. They knew about the target. They knew about the weapon. They knew the timeline. The question was how to respond. The obvious choice was to disrupt the operation. Arrest the operatives, seize the weapon, publicize Iran's assassination attempt, embarrass them internationally. But Israeli intelligence leadership saw an opportunity. Let the operation proceed. See how far Iran's technology had advanced. Test their own countermeasures. The decision was controversial. Using Barnea as bait was risky. But he agreed to the plan. The security arrangements were modified. Body doubles were prepared. Surveillance was intensified. Every contingency was planned. The risk was calculated. The Iranian weapon reached Tel Aviv on February 20th, transported by cargo ship, hidden inside industrial equipment. Israeli customs let it through. They watched the operatives collect it, followed them to a safe house in Jaffa, let them assemble the system undisturbed. The assembly took 4 nights. The operatives worked carefully, following instructions transmitted through encrypted channels. The weapon came together perfectly. Machine gun mounted, AI computer installed, facial recognition activated, self-destruct charges armed. On February 28th, the operatives moved the weapon, loaded it into a delivery van, drove to a location near Barnea's mother's apartment, parked on a side street with clear line of sight, activated the system. Then they left. Walking to separate safe houses, the AI would handle the rest. The weapon's sensors came online, started scanning pedestrians, vehicles, faces in windows. The targeting algorithm processed thousands of images per minute, waiting for its designated target. The confidence threshold was set at 90%. Below that, it wouldn't fire. Israeli counter-surveillance teams monitored everything. They had the van under observation. They knew exactly where the weapon was positioned. They could neutralize it instantly. But they waited, gathering intelligence, watching how the system operated. Friday evening arrived. Barnea's security detail prepared for the visit. But the director didn't leave his office. A body double went instead. Same build, same clothing, similar gait. The resemblance was close, good enough to fool human observers at distance. The double approached the target zone at 7 p.m., walking naturally. No indication he knew about the weapon. Israeli sharpshooters were positioned on surrounding rooftops. Electronic countermeasures were ready. Medical teams were standing by. Every angle was covered. The Iranian weapon's sensors detected the figure. The AI began its analysis. Facial structure, body proportions, movement patterns. The algorithm calculated confidence levels. 73% match, below threshold. The weapon held fire. The double continued walking, passed directly through the kill zone. The weapon tracked him but didn't engage. The AI's programming was working correctly. It wouldn't fire without sufficient certainty. Iran's engineers had built in appropriate safeguards. Israeli intelligence learned what they needed. The Iranian system was conservative, required high confidence, wouldn't risk collateral damage. This was valuable information. It revealed limitations, showed how to defeat similar systems. The counter-operation launched at 7:15 p.m. Israeli commandos stormed the van, disabled the weapon before it could self-destruct, captured the AI computer intact. This was the prize: the programming, the algorithms, complete access to Iranian autonomous weapon technology. The 3 Iranian operatives were arrested simultaneously. Raids on their safe houses. No resistance. They'd expected the weapon to complete its mission, expected to be extracted afterward. They never anticipated Mossad knew everything. The interrogations revealed the full scope of Iran's program. Development timeline, personnel involved, technical capabilities, funding sources. The Revolutionary Guard's autonomous weapon initiative was completely compromised. Years of work exposed. But Israel kept the operation secret. No public announcements. No diplomatic protests. The captured operatives disappeared into the Israeli prison system. The weapon was analyzed quietly. The intelligence was exploited without fanfare. Iran realized the operation failed when the operatives missed their extraction window. Communications went silent. Safe houses were abandoned. The weapon never detonated. The entire cell was gone. They'd been compromised completely. General Taib faced the supreme leader's fury. The operation was supposed to restore Iran's credibility, demonstrate capability. Instead, it revealed weakness, showed how thoroughly Israeli intelligence had penetrated Iranian systems. Taib was removed from his position, replaced with a hardliner who promised better results. But the damage was permanent. Iran's autonomous weapon program was set back years. Their best technology was in Israeli hands. Their operational networks were burned. Their technical personnel were demoralized. The gap between Iranian and Israeli capabilities had widened. Mossad's analysis of the captured weapon confirmed their superiority. Iranian AI was 2 generations behind. The targeting algorithms were less sophisticated. The hardware was inferior. Iran couldn't match Israeli innovation, not with current resources, not with international sanctions limiting technology access. The Fakhrizadeh assassination had achieved its strategic objective, not just eliminating a scientist, but establishing dominance in autonomous weapons, proving Israeli technological superiority, deterring Iranian retaliation. The operation's success extended beyond the immediate target. The captured Iranian weapon was reprogrammed, turned into a research tool. Israeli engineers studied its weaknesses, used them to improve their own systems, developed countermeasures against similar weapons. The intelligence coup was complete. By mid-2022, Israel had the most advanced autonomous weapon program in the world, more sophisticated than American systems, more reliable than Russian technology, more capable than Chinese developments. The assassination of Fakhrizadeh had launched an arms race, and Israel was winning. But the long-term implications remained troubling. Autonomous weapons were proliferating. Standards were non-existent. International law was inadequate. Eventually, these systems would be used by terrorist organizations, by criminal cartels, by anyone with technical knowledge and resources. The technology that killed Fakhrizadeh would reshape warfare. Targeted killings would become routine. Assassination would be automated. The barrier to political violence would lower. The world was entering a new era, one where machines decided who lived and died. Israeli ethicists continued debating the implications. Some argued the program should be discontinued. The risks outweighed benefits. Others insisted autonomous weapons were inevitable. Israel needed to lead rather than follow. The debate had no clear resolution. Mossad's position remained unchanged. They were at war. Their enemies didn't respect rules. Technological advantage was necessary for survival. Autonomous weapons were tools. Like any tool, they could be used responsibly or irresponsibly. Intent mattered more than capability. The Fakhrizadeh operation became a case study, studied by intelligence agencies worldwide. The tactics were analyzed, the technology was examined, the operational security was praised. It represented the future of covert action, for better or worse. 3 years after the assassination, Iran's nuclear program continued. Slower than before, less capable, but not stopped. Fakhrizadeh's successors lacked his expertise. Progress was incremental. The weaponization program remained years from completion. Israel considered the operation a success. They degraded Iranian capabilities, eliminated a key scientist, demonstrated technological superiority, deterred retaliation. The strategic objectives were achieved. The cost was acceptable. But the cost included consequences no one predicted. Autonomous weapons spread faster than anticipated. Russia used them in Ukraine. China deployed them domestically. Turkey sold them to proxy forces. The technology escaped controlled environments, proliferated to unstable regions. By 2025, autonomous weapons were routine. Dozens of countries had programs. Hundreds of systems were operational. The ethical debates continued, but they were academic. The technology existed. It was being used. The only question was how to regulate what couldn't be controlled. The assassination on that rural road outside Tehran had changed warfare permanently. A single operation, a single weapon system, a single target. The ripples spread globally, shaped international relations, influenced military doctrine, altered the balance of power. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh died because technology made his assassination possible. The machine gun that killed him represented decades of innovation. Robotics, artificial intelligence, facial recognition, autonomous decision-making, all combined into a single weapon system. His death wasn't just an intelligence success, it was a demonstration, proof of concept, evidence that autonomous weapons worked, that machines could select targets, that algorithms could make life and death decisions. The future had arrived, and it was controlled by artificial intelligence. The Fakhrizadeh assassination would be remembered as a turning point. The moment when automated killing became operational reality. When the science fiction of autonomous weapons became fact. When humanity crossed a threshold it could never uncross. The machine gun that killed him was destroyed, but the technology survived, improved, proliferated, advanced. The weapon was gone, but its legacy endured. In laboratories, in military facilities, in intelligence agencies, the future of warfare was being built, one autonomous system at a time, and somewhere in a classified facility in Tel Aviv, engineers were already designing the next generation, more capable, more lethal, more autonomous. The arms race continued, the technology advanced. The implications remained unclear, but one thing was certain. Warfare would never be the same. The age of autonomous weapons had begun, and there was no going back.